An identity crisis can be many things. Losing your sense of purpose, a midlife crisis, returning to civilian life, or simply feeling like you don't belong. My life has been one ongoing identity crisis after another. I've started this podcast to help deal with my own demons and negative self-talk, and to ultimately and hopefully learn that I'm not alone, and that these thoughts and feelings aren't unique to me. So if this helps you too, then one by one we can come together, heal ourselves, and move forward with our goals and dreams with a sense of belief, happiness, and purpose. Hi, welcome back to the Identity Crisis Podcast. I am JNewtz, and my guest today is singer, songwriter, musician, Mr. Roy Maddocks. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, going pretty good. How are you, man?
I'm very, very well. Very, very well. So tell me something. First of all, when it comes to music, what got you involved in music and wanting to take it further to write and record? Because, I mean, look, I play guitar. I know loads of people who have learned instruments through their lives, but I don't think they pursue it further beyond their teenage and school years. So what was the driving passion for you wanting to make music more of a bigger thing in your life?
Well, to be honest, I actually probably think I'd have to start in primary school because it was always like choir and obviously did music and all that type of stuff as your classes. But I always just loved the sound of music, musical theatre. I don't know, just the way the music makes you feel, I don't know, it's nothing like any other thing. So that's why I guess I always loved music, but it wasn't until probably about high school and obviously learning some new things like illustrative writing and all that type of stuff where I actually started really, putting myself into music, and that's where I feel like the real fire of music came from, because it was just a way to escape and stuff like that, especially because kind of how I grew up with what the whole boys will be boys mentality. You can't exactly express your feelings to other people, so my way of getting that type of stuff out of my system was writing. And then obviously listening to music and stuff, eventually I just started writing songs, and then that's where it just all came from. But I feel I think the initial fire of writing music was just because, you just never had an outlet to talk about shit.
Well, they do say that music is very, very, very self-expressive, and if you listen to some of the greatest songs out there, the ones that people know about the second that you give them a song title, you can always argue that song came through a form of self-expression, whether that be a broken heart or loneliness or happiness or just something eventful in their life that they were reflecting on. I mean, straight away, I would think of songs like Hey Jude. I mean, Paul McCartney wrote that because it was centered around John Lennon's divorce, and it was a song for his son Julian. And it was, Hey Jules, don't make it bad. And it came from Paul thinking about that situation, wanting to give, Julian Lennon something positive. And it turned into a song that is one of the most loved Beatles songs ever.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. A lot of my songs are written in one sitting, in 5 minutes, just because it's just just comes straight through. Because kind of like what you said, it's just raw emotion. It's real. It's just putting your heart onto paper and then expressing it through art, via music or whatever someone's art is. But that's all it is. It's just putting what you've experienced or what you want to express out to the world. It's a hard thing, but then when something's so natural, for example, like that, or myself when I wrote my song "Worth It," it was when I first initially decided that I was no, I'm done being someone else. I want to be me, and I've always done music, and so I'm always been a musician. But I think I wrote that song so fast, and it came out so effortlessly with such a great flow because it was all truth. And the whole song's just about battling with your past self and be like, no, I am worth doing this. Or like, like for example, like you said, he wrote it specifically for a reasoning of being like, hey man, it's okay, dude. So yeah.
It's interesting. I was actually going to get onto your song "Worth It," so it's good that you brought that one up because, as I said, I listened to all of the songs on Spotify. That one especially really struck a chord with me. Like I think in the first few lines of the song, I was like, "Oh wow, yeah, I know exactly where it's coming from because I get this." So, and of course, the title gives it away as well. And it was a perfect song, I think, to talk about for this podcast. So. Well, first of all, when it came to Worth It, what was going through your mind at the time? Like, what sort of headspace were you in to put pen to paper and write that song? Because I'm sure you didn't wake up going, I'm gonna write a song about how I feel like shit, but I'm worth it.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I was pretty depressed, and I was going through a massive change in my life, with like work life and the same with just mentality, especially after the lockdowns with COVID. And it was one of those things where I had always made like music, like I said, and I had a whole heap of songs stored up. And it just constantly just keeps getting built up like a bottle. Like people say you shouldn't bottle things up, but like I was suppressing it. And then it just got to a point where I was done with work, done how I was living, done being depressed. And I was like, this is what I want to do. This is where my fire comes from. It gives me that drive, the purpose of like living. So it was just one of those things where it's just like, am I worth doing this? So I wrote it. And then funnily enough, my beautiful partner, Nikita, which you know, obviously, but
of course,
she auditioned
she's been on this podcast, and she's an amazing person, and so you're very lucky to have somebody like that in your life. You really are.
Yeah, well, without her, I don't think I would be the man I am today, and especially she's the one that led me onto this path. Like I was going to say, she auditioned for a live rapper event for me, and she knew I had already written rap songs and all that type of stuff. And I came home from work, and she was like, I've auditioned for this for you. You got to do it. And I was like, oh, yeah, no worries. So, yeah, I did it. I did a quick video to an instrumental beat that I just found. And it just kicked off so fast. It was like, oh, this is a 6 song. Yeah, blah, blah. Oh, can you write this song in a week? And that's where I wrote, I can't do this, I can't do that. So that's where that song came from. I got tested with that song, and that was the song that I wrote as well, I guess, straight after Worth It. Was like, I can do this, I can do that. So Worth It was the other side of things where I was like, can I even do it? And then I was like, no, this song's I can believe in myself. So it was more of like the battle afterwards. So it's funny how the songs kind of came out pretty much right next to each other. But yeah, I guess, like I said earlier, it's just putting my life into pen.
Yeah. You mentioned rap. Look, I'm not, I don't know too much about the genre of rap, but obviously you've got people out there like Eminem, for example. Now, and even many years before that, you had like Vanilla Ice, and there's hundreds of thousands of rappers out there that the world either knows or doesn't know. And in Australia, you've got Hilltop Hoods and a few others like that. But what is it about rap that really drew you to that style? Because I mean, to me, I suppose rap is very, very expressive, rather than I suppose traditional songs tell a story, whereas rap is basically very expressive.
Yeah, well, I did a open mic once out in the country where I live, and obviously it's not the young youth that usually listen to rap, but what I said to them, it's fast-fed poetry, because there's like little like innuendos and foreshadowing things that you say when you write poetry, and you do the same with rapping, but it's all in obviously rhyme. So then you're obviously thinking ahead of what you're saying as well. So it's very intricate writing. That's what people don't understand. That's where I love it. But it's also like what you say. It's very expressive. It's emotional. Like you can really express how you want to. For example, if it's like frustration or something, you can like really get it out. Sometimes, yes, like singing is beautiful and everything, and the mix between it's just amazing when it comes to hip hop and everything. But just that rawness of someone just talking about something can just sometimes impact you so much harder. Or like, for example, like you said with Eminem, blow things out of proportion and shove things in people's eyes that they're like, well, that's a bit too much. But that's where rap kind of was brought out to be. It was to be out of the norm and everything. So I guess that's why I've always enjoyed rap. But again, like when I wrote Worth It, that was actually one of my first rap songs. So I didn't even know if I could rap until one of my best mates, David, actually was like, nah, man, you can definitely do this. He was like, I haven't seen anyone like be able to write like you. So he gave me a lot of drive. And to be honest, that's where my label came from, with him. It's Red Black Sesame Snap, because my good mate David is Aboriginal, and I just wanted to give him that little bit of, like kudos to be like, thanks, man, for putting me on this journey. So yeah, it's good to have some supportive people in your life.
Well, look, it definitely is. And you mentioned before, when you're really depressed and so forth, there's a time where you need to be alone and be by yourself, and there's a time where you need to have people around you, but not people who are just there, people who are with you, they've got you, they're there to lift you up and support you, and it can be very hard to be creative and express yourself through music or anything creative when you're lonely and depressed and there's no one around. Because I know in my experience, there's that inner want and drive, but you are down the rabbit hole so much, you can't kick yourself to pick up a pen or open the computer and start writing something, start creating something, because you're such in a spiraling mood that you go, what's the fucking point?
Yeah. I early on, why I started writing things was my dad passed away when I was 18. And with what you just said, I stopped music for a solid 6 months. And I was just like, no, got no motivation or love or interest, because obviously it's a big loss losing your dad. But then the other side of things was what actually got me really going, like, no, I need to do something about this, was I started listening to one of his old iPods, and it was just all this music that I loved. I was like, why didn't I know this with my dad? So yeah, it's good. It's one of those things where I feel like he's with me. There's a song I have written, hasn't been released yet, but hopefully it will near the end of this year. But yeah, it's a song I wrote for him and my mum, and it was a great healing song when I wrote it, because I actually wrote it when my mum was yapping on one night about my dad, and I wrote down things she was saying throughout the night, and I turned it into a song. So she actually helped me write the song without even knowing. So yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing when it comes to art. You can just go from a very dark place and can change your world. It really can.
It definitely can, and I think that's amazing. As you say, you pick up on something that somebody's saying, and the first thing that goes through your mind is, this could be a song, and I have to write this down. It really is, and this is the thing about the creative process. It could be anything. It really can. And one of my experiences, I mean, many years ago, I used to be in a band. I play guitar. I still do. I just haven't been in a band for a very long time. But we were jamming for weeks and coming up with different kind of licks and riffs and so forth. And we had some things that we thought musically sounded good. And then we all said to each other, right, next week we'll come back to the rehearsal room and let's write some lyrics to one of or two of these songs. And I remember I got to the studio and the other two hadn't arrived yet. And I had my guitar case in the back seat and I had pen and paper in there. And the intention was to bring it in there. We're going to throw up some ideas and write a song in the room. Anyway, I'm sitting there twiddling my thumbs, literally, and I really don't know how else to describe it apart from I've had this sort of feeling or this voice as such. And I know this sort of sounds a little bit woo-woo, but I literally sort of had this inner dialogue, which wasn't me, saying, "Get the paper from your guitar case," and I ignored it. And the more I ignored it, the more this sort of voice or feeling was just pushing me, "Get the paper out, get the paper out, get the paper out," and it became such a conflict that I actually screamed out, "All right, I'll get the fucking paper." And I looked around and I'm like, "There's no one here. I'm fucking crazy. What's going on?" But I pulled the paper out, and by this time I'm annoyed, right? So I got the paper in my hands, and I'm like, "Righto, I got the paper. Come on then. Come on, dickhead. I've got the paper. What's so special about the paper?" And the more I looked at the paper, I'm like, well, I could just start with these words and just sort of move to these. And 3 minutes later, the other two arrived. They came in the same car, and they're like, "Hey man, how you doing?" And I said, "I've just written the song," and I literally wrote the song in that 3 minute period. And
Yeah.
we sort of called it our version of "Wake Me Up When September Ends," because it was one of those songs that started slow, it built up, and then it got back into slow again. It had this great emotional sound to it anyway. But the lyrics, it was all about, a guy who loves a girl, he goes to war and he dies, and he never gets to see her again. It's called Another Day. But when we'd written it and recorded it, everyone that I played it to go, "Hey, what do you think of this song?" And they're like, "Dude, is this about your ex-girlfriend?" I'm like, "No, it's not." And they're like, "No, seriously, like, do you realize what you've written here?" And I guess in retrospect then, and also looking back now, it really was me channeling the incredibly deep emotion of loss of that relationship, because I mean, she was the love of my life, and it took me many, many, many years to deal with that. And I guess one of the things that just happened was my emotions came out in that song, but it was disguised as something else. And if I'd sat down to consciously write it, I don't think it ever would have happened. So when you mention things like your mum's saying these things and you're like, "Hey, I need to write this down," I love how creativity and ideas can come from anywhere. I think it's just about recognizing where they are and just taking that pen out, or taking the notepad out and going, "Bang, I got to write this shit down."
Well, for me, I feel like the best quote would be "Smelling the roses" is always the best thing to do, because I did the same thing for my song "Super Duper" that I released at the start of the year. I was just in flow state, like you said, like it just all came out of me, and I had this idea sitting with my friend's bar, and it was obviously summer. In Australia, we have icy cold called Super Dupers. I was like, "Man, I feel like this would be a sick song," and he was like, "Oh yeah," and then I just sat there in the studio and I made this beat, and then I came up with the line, "Feeling super duper, gonna have to cool me down with the super super duper, yeah." And
Love it.
next thing you know, yeah, I loved it too. And next thing you know, I wrote a song in half an hour. The music, the beat behind it, everything. I was sitting there, I was like, "What the hell did I just do?" Like, that was amazing. And I was just sitting there crimping in my chair, and I'm like, "Man, I gotta get into this flow state more." So which my friends have picked up on me and picking on me for now. But I've now been saying this thing where it's like, "Oh, write that down." And I just keep saying that because I'm like, "Oh, that sounds like a good little line for a song. Write that down." But it's like I said, you got to smell the roses. Like, just anything could be a song. Like you said, like you didn't even realize what you were writing, and then all of a sudden it happens. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't even realize a song called "Tracky Song" could be such a popular song, but it did.
Yeah.
And that just got stuck in my head. One day I was like putting on my trackies. I'm like, "Put your trackies on, get your trackies on." I'm like, "No, I gotta write a song now." So yeah, it can just happen like that.
But some songs out there, you listen to them and you can just tell they're silly and playful songs. I think there's a band called The Streets, I think they are. And there's that song, "You're Fit But You Know It." You're fit but you know it. I remember years ago.
Yeah, I've heard that song.
I remember years ago hearing the story behind that song, and it was just one of these silly little throwaway things that they were doing, and it turned into this catchy song. And it went mental. It went all over the world, and it was just two guys just doing this thing with it. It was just such a very basic, simple thing. Just dun 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 dun. So simple.
Yeah.
And once again, I suppose you can. I guess correct me if I'm wrong, but that song's a form of rap, isn't it? Because it's just they're London Cockney. See, I reckon you're about an 8 or a 9, maybe even 9.5 in 4 years' time. So it's would you classify with that sort of music as rap music as well, or is it a different sort of style?
Yeah, I would definitely say it's some sort of rap style. Like, I don't know, like obviously there's Aussie rap, so I can say there's like UK rap and stuff like that as well. But I guess this is where I feel like people look at music in sections, but I'm like, yeah, of course there's genres, but he might do that song and then he does a different type of style. It's like, I think these days it's more combined. It's all mixed. Like, for example, one of my songs that I'm probably going to release next year is very jazzy, and it's not mainly rap, but it is rhyme, if that makes sense.
Mm. I look forward to hearing that one. I do like a bit of jazz or jazz-inspired or swing-inspired stuff. Now, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, with Mr. Roy Maddocks, Jazz Style. I can just imagine it now. I love it. It sounds really cool. And like, when you wrote that song, like, did you have like a jazz sort of sound in mind, or was there something sort of jazz in your life that you'd heard or seen or experienced at the time that sort of made you want to go in that direction?
To be honest, it was natural flow. I wrote the song, wrote the lyrics first, and when I was kind of rapping it, I started just naturally singing it, and then I had this picture in my head of myself in multiple positions, kind of singing like old jazz style. You know how they like have the backup vocals, like singing in the background, going like do 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 do. Yeah, and it was a rap song that I changed into more like a rhyme rap song, and now it's just all funky and junky. It's cool. I will have to obviously send it to you so you understand what I'm talking about. But
I would love to.
I don't know. It's just one of those things where you go with your spirit when it comes to music. Like, it just comes out, and then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, that's the song.
You mentioned before that anything could be a song, and I think that there's a lot of people who I think that they put maybe too much mental stress on what a song should be, or how it should be structured, or how it should flow, or what the subject should be about. Just talk to me more about your philosophy of anything can be a song, because I'm sure there are people out there who are like, no, that's a shit idea, that's not going to work. Just talk to me about how you realize anything could be a song.
Well, yeah, I think that perfect example would be the Trashy song, because that's how it started. I initially was like, this is so stupid. And I kept it to myself for about a month, but it was stuck in my head like every single day. And then every single time I put my Trashies on, it was like, oh my God, it's just doing my head. And then I pitched the idea to one of my coworkers, Carrie. She's a beautiful lady. So she was like, no, that's an awesome idea for a song. And I was like, all right, I'll write it then. So I wrote the song, and it ended up being really bad. And then Keita actually was like, nah, rewrite it again. So I rewrote it again and actually put some music to it. And it just all of a sudden just was like, man, this is funny. Like, it's giving me Lonely Island vibes, but it could work. And then when I performed it live for that rap live like event that I did audition for, Kid auditioned for me, and performed it live. And then as I was rapping it, I had people running in from the street just to come listen to the song.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, as I'm doing it, I'm like, man, this must be a bop. And then by the end of the song, everyone's like, put your trackies on, get your trackies on. And I was like, holy crap, this is sick. And then I finished the song up, and then I had this big Mary guy with dreads come over to me, and I was like, oh my God, this guy's about to knock me out. And he comes over, he's like, oh bro, that was sick, guys. And he just gives me like a big handshake and a hug. He's like, yeah, stick around, man, you're pretty cool. I'm like, yeah, cheers, bro. And I was like, that solidified it. I was like, man, I could write a song about anything. As long as it's like a sick bop and like sick rhymes and everything, it's going to be a hit.
It's amazing how something so simple can also just be so catchy, not just musically, but it, as you say, just it drew people in. I think because so many people, they know what it's like to just, bum around in their trackies or whatever, and it's such a thing that so many people do all over the world, and I think it would just resonate with everybody. And as you say, you mix that with mix it with a catchy beat, and bang, it's because that's the thing with music. If it sounds good, if the rhythm is right, and there's that sort of little magical thing that people can relate to, they go, "Oh, that's really cool," and clearly that song's got it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I had people coming up to me, like one of my friends messaged me the other day, a voicemail going, "Put your trackies on." No. He sent the "Get your trackies on." He's like, it's still stuck in my head. I'm like, bro, I'm sold. I'm so happy now. And it's been a year since it's been out, and it's still getting played. And I checked it today; it got played 30 times today. So I'm pretty happy.
That's awesome, man. Is that on Spotify or is that just in general somewhere else?
Yeah, that's just on Spotify. So it's happy days on like that. Happy simple man.
It's I know that if you speak to anybody who creates anything, for example, like people who make videos for YouTube or people who upload their work to Spotify, for example, you don't do it for the numbers. And and if you do it for the numbers, you're doing it for the wrong reasons because you get so focused on the numbers that you can either feel amazingly happy or you can feel shit. But when you look at, I mean, even with this podcast, through my apps, I can see how many times a day it's been listened to, and which podcast has been listened to individually as far as downloads are concerned. I can see where in the world it's been listened to, what countries, what cities, and so forth. And it's amazing, when you look at it and you go, wow, I launched this today and it's already had 10 plays in 7 hours, and I've got an audience in Japan, and I've got people in Amsterdam, and I've got people in South Africa of all places, and you go, wow, it's incredible. And of course, you've got no idea how long they may have listened for and if they're going to come back, but just to see that it's gone out to a reach that you didn't think you could get to. There is a small part of you that just thinks this is awesome. And like you said, you don't do it for the numbers. You do it because you want to be creative and express yourself and give something back to the world through yourself. But when you can see, as you say, it's had 30 downloads today, like that's awesome. And it must be such an awesome feeling to go, it's still going, and it's great. And you've done that little bit of work. You've recorded the song, and now it's just out there for people to enjoy.
Yeah, and to be honest, I feel like it's given me more drive and incentive to believe in this, because like that's why I released the Tracky song first, because I'm like, it's a funny, stupid song. If it works, awesome. Like I must be doing something right. And then it's just like, oh, okay, if that one works, of course my serious songs are going to be pretty good too. And then it's just, I know, I guess it just keeps giving you that little bit of like, I can do this. Like, there's one thing for having your close family and friends support you. But when it's someone you don't know, like you said, like overseas, I had people in Switzerland listening to my music, and I'm like, that's pretty sick. And I don't even know how the hell they got my music over there, but it just so happens they're listening to it, and it's just being grateful just for living like that. It's just, that's what people need to come back to. Because simple things, like I said, smell the roses. It's like, man, even if it's one follower, I don't care. There's someone out there where, for example, my music has either helped them or, made their day a little bit brighter because it's an upbeat song, or, the words have just sunk in and made them click so they can actually move on and progress in their lives through something that I've experienced. It's just reward. That's all you get.
Yeah, you're right. And you know what? Just I've got this picture in my mind now of somebody in Sweden going, "Yeah, put your trackies on, yeah."
Yeah, put your trackies on.
I was trying my best not to.
These have a blowout. We have long custom Swiss on some trackies.
I was trying my hardest not to go into the Swedish chef just saying, "Trackies on." Oh my god. Oh, I love it. I just love that so much. I shouldn't go down stereotypes, but hey, whatever makes you laugh. So-
No. Either laugh or crying. So I'm going to choose to laugh.
Mm. Tell me, when it comes to actually creating and recording your music, how do you do it? Because these days there's a whole bunch of different programs on the computer, and I mean, I remember when I was in my band many, many years ago, it was that thing of you'd hire a studio, albeit an independent one because it was cheap, and they would have Pro Tools, they'd have all the microphones, you'd set up as a band, and you'd run through your songs, you record it, you'd pick the best ones, or you'd go, all right, let's do that section again, and you'd lay down 3 or 4 vocals
Yeah,
and pick the
well,
best one. How do you
I
produce
think,
your music?
yeah, well, because I'm independent, I do everything myself. And I'm self-taught and everything too. So I think it's one of those things where you find what you can work with. Like I just started with a guitar, a microphone, and a computer. That's all I started with. And I think learning little things like that from the get-go instead of going straight to like the Pro Tools and stuff can actually be very helpful. I learned a lot of things, and I still use a free program when it comes to music. If anyone needs the plugin, go use BandLab. It's pretty good. You can pretty much make a lot of songs with what that just gives you. But I feel like just the fiddle around with just having less equipment can give you more, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah,
Because once you master all that, and then you add on to that, for example, my good friend Sahar, he bought me a little MIDI keyboard, which has just blown production like so far ahead. Now I'm making songs so much faster. Now I can actually play the keyboard instead of using the laptop to try to make music or using my guitar and then changing the sound. So I think it's one of those things. Yeah, like I said, it's not necessarily like you don't have to have a full studio. It's just knowing what you like, what you can work with, and again, just making the initiative to teach yourself something new can go so far. And just have fun. Let's just have a play around. Like a lot of great mistakes in this world are being sold on your shelf in the supermarket. So.
You know, I love that. That is such a fantastic little quote. A lot of great mistakes are being sold out there. God, yeah, that's fantastic. And I think that once again that comes down.
Well, it's like mosquito repellent is a mistake.
I think
it was meant to be perfume.
Yeah, there's an old saying of what is it? It's better to have something done than have it be perfect, or something like that. Yeah, done is better than perfect. There's a lot of people who I think they keep, oh, I need to change it, need to perfect it, need to change it, rather than just going, well, here it is, bang. You know, you mentioned before you've written a song, like the Tracky song, you wrote it, but then Nikita said, oh, why don't you rewrite it? And sometimes a rewrite can be a good thing, but I also know through experiences doing comedy or even music and so forth, sometimes whatever comes out of you is actually really good. There's a wonderful book out there called The 10-Day Screenplay, and it's basically all about how you can write a feature film in 10 days or less if you want to speed through the process. And their philosophy is, why spend 6 months, 12 months, 3 years writing and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting a script that may never get made? So write the thing, write it fast, get it out there, and then move on to writing the next one that could get made. And there's a lot. I think that the more that you rewrite something and re-engineer something, and it depends what it is, but I think when it comes to things such as music, for example, when you're pouring your heart and soul out for whatever focus you've got at the time, I think that the more you rewrite it and change it lyrically, musically, it can really lose that rawness about it. It loses that feeling. It loses that message, because you're now going into, oh, I need to perfect this, and like this is too dark. And I think if you took your song, like Worth It, for example, if you had rewritten that 10 times, it wouldn't have the raw message it's got.
No, it'd be very probably robotic, as people would say.
Yeah, and overly produced. So how do you make sure that you don't go down that path to really over engineer things? Do you just go, right, that's what it is and I'm happy with it? Or do you go through a rewriting process? Like,
well, there's always like some sort of little editing when it comes to music. Like, for example, when a line doesn't pocket, and I mean by pocket, I mean like go with the flow of the song. But like that's like maybe taking out a word like it's or and. Like you don't need those words in there. But what I actually like to do, I call my crew like a close group network of friends that I really trust when it comes to just giving a non-biased opinion and just truth. And it's like, it's one of those things like you give to 10 people, right? They all come back with some sort of advice or whatever. You don't obviously, I take everything like a grain of salt. I take it more as like ideas, if anything. If it's positive or negative, it doesn't matter. What I'm going for is just like, okay, this is how I feel. If 9 out of 10 people are going, yeah, this is pretty good, and then there's that one person that's saying no, I'm going to listen to that one person that says no, and then I'm going to bounce that idea off the other 9 people. And then after that, that's all I do. After that, it's all me. Is I've given my main blueprint idea out, and if majority of people like it, I've done pretty good. And if that one person doesn't like it, well, it's like, all right, well, why? I could probably either progress from that and learn something from it, or if it's unvalid to me, it's like, well, that's just your opinion. That's totally fine. Not everyone's going to like my music. And that's where I think you just need that little bit of being like, of a backbone to be like, all right, now I do what I want to do. I'm still making the music for me, but I'm making it for everyone as well. I do want people to like my music, but again, like I said, you're never going to have everyone liking your music, but those people that I trust give me the right feedback, if that makes sense. Like they're non-biased, so if something does sound horrible, they're going to be like, look, yo, man, maybe redo that thing because you sound like a dying bird.
I guess, I mean, there's a lot of power in if the majority of people are giving you the same amount of feedback about a certain thing, then it's probably very prudent to take that feedback on board. But I
don't actually rewrite a lot of my songs. Like the lyrics stay the same, if that makes sense. It's more like the sound of the song.
Okay.
The meaning's always there.
Right. See, because I mean, in my
like I'll be like, this song's about this.
Yeah. That's fascinating because in my mind, when someone says to me like, from a song's point of view, oh, rewrite it, I never think about change the music. I always think rewrite the lyrics, rewrite that chorus or rewrite that verse. I've never even thought of change part of the music. So that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Because
it's
a good point.
Music terms composing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you made an interesting
point. So, I guess
saying like
lyrics,
the song, like the message of the song is the same. That's such a cool analogy. I love that because, like I said, I think there's also a lot of people out there that wouldn't have considered a rewrite to be musical rewrite.
Well, it's like one of those things. For example, it's like I don't necessarily have to write the song myself either. But if it's, for example, I'm trying to make, let's say, a sad, mellow song, and I put like an upbeat kind of tune to it, it's not going to sound a sad, mellow song, if that makes sense. So you got to make the feel of the song too. So like what you were saying, like it's not necessarily always rewriting the lyrics or the chorus. It's the whole composition of the whole song that I'm pitching to my friends. It's not just the lyrics per se. Because like there's a reason why the song gets written in the first place, like what we were talking about earlier. Like the flow just comes out. Like, no, that song needs to be written. And again, like I said, not everyone has to agree with it, but it can come out the way it's intended to.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, I mean, you look. There's a song out there. If you analyze the lyrics, you go, this is actually a fairly dark and depressing song. But it doesn't sound that way, and the best example I can think of straight away is Mr. Brightside by the Killers.
Oh yeah.
You know, coming out of my cage and I've been doing just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that song. I'm fairly sure like that song is basically about a guy who's heartbroken. And yet
Yeah.
it's done in this, coming out of my cage, and people love it. They dance to it and everything, but they don't realize that there's a really sad story attached to it. And I'm sure there's
Yeah.
so many songs out there which either sound really uplifting and yet they're depressing as all hell. But then there's songs that are actually meant to be this is, happy, but it's played in such a depressing way.
Well, again, it's just all about what you want to put across. You know what I mean? Because, like I said, like I might have to change the bop of the song because it just doesn't hit right. But the intention of the song's there. You know what I mean? It's just like, how do you want everyone to feel when they're listening to the song?
Is that the way that you start your process? Do you start with a feeling of how you want people to feel, or do you just write and then the feeling comes afterwards?
I actually got asked this question not long ago by one of my friends, and it's actually all of the above. It all just depends. I am very open when it comes to my creativity. So sometimes it's the lyrics that tell me what the song's going to do, or the melody that I've sung is telling me what to write, if that makes sense. So I know there's never really like a full structure when it comes to like the way I create my music. I think it's what it feels, what it gives me, is what it's telling me. I think it comes after, I don't know, maybe listening to a lot of music where you just go like, yeah, I kind of want this kind of vibe for this.
Yeah. Once again, it's very intuitive, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, well, again, it's more of an expression of myself. Like you said earlier, if I was to do it for the sake of like a job, which again it is, but it's my passion. It's not work, so it can never be work. So I feel like it's more authentic instead of changed and remade and then redrafted, and then it's just a robotic song.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. It's the same with so many things.
It's like one of those things with auto-tune. Like, I don't mind it, but there's a reason why a lot of old songs still hit so hard today is because of how raw and emotional, or just how they came out. So, like, with love or creativity, it wasn't programmed. It was all just human.
Yeah, well, actually, do you know what? I remember once somebody said to me, Nirvana, great band. They said Kurt Cobain, amazing guitarist, shit singer. But the thing is, people were drawn in by the music, drawn in by the rawness of his voice and his presence, and the message that music was about. It wasn't so overproduced that he had to have a choir boy sound to his voice. It was just him at what he is, and autotune. I mean, look, it's definitely come in a big way in the past 15 years or so. And I can think of bands like Black Eyed Peas, for example, who have clearly used it in many of their songs, and you can tell that like the human voice has become more robotic, as you say. But you listen to the Rolling Stones or the Beatles or Bon Jovi. I mean, could you imagine Bon Jovi with auto-tune? Like, Living on a Prayer would not be the classic hit that it is if it was, like with his horrible robotic flair to it.
Electric growl. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's where it is. It's like, which again, like, everyone to their own taste and stuff, but that's why, again, those songs are just classified as legendary songs because of the rawness. And if Bon Jovi had like an electric growl, wouldn't sound any good, but like, that's where it was beautiful back in the day. That's why they're legendary songs, because of the human part is in the song. And the last thing I said was perfection is imperfection. Imperfection is perfection. Sorry.
Yeah, and you know, I think that the way that we've created the world with every single industry, whether that be music, acting, comedy, writing, anything. these days, when you look at programs like the talent shows, for example, like, Britain's Got Talent, The Voice, and anything else like that, there really is this sort of search for ultra perfectionism. It isn't just talent so much anymore. It's that perfection, perfection, perfection. And this is where I think a lot of things like imposter syndrome can really creep in. And I know for myself, I've always, over the past 15 years, been comparing myself to other people, going, well, I can't do that, and I'm not good like that, and I haven't got that kind of accent, or I haven't got that kind of voice, or whatever it may be. And as much as I don't try to pay attention to a lot of reality TV and all these sort of talent shows as such, the fact that they exist and you can see them every now and again just through scrolling through feeds on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, you can't avoid them all the time. And as I said, things like imposter syndrome can really sort of sink in. Have you found that through your process getting into music and choosing to take it further, do you still have those those days of imposter syndrome, going, I can't do this, and why would people listen to me, and you compare yourself to other people?
All the time. To be honest, I compare myself to myself a lot, and it's so funny because I never used to think much about it, but I am a Gemini, so you get one of those things. Like, you do have a bit of a two-face. Like, there's the side of me where I'm like, yeah, I'm sick. Like, I can make music, I can do this, and that's where I guess songs like, for example, Super Duper come out, and I feel empowered. But then there's the other days when I'm like, man, I do not deserve air, and and I write songs like, for example, Worth It, or some of these songs that I haven't brought out yet. And I think it's always going to be a constant battle. Like, when I was younger, I used to compare myself to others, like obviously a lot of other males, or like other, like, idols, like singers and stuff like that, and be like, oh, I can't sing like that. Like, yeah, I can hold a tune, I can hold a note and everything, but like, I'm not that, so I'm never going to be good enough, or I'm never going to be actually able to do this music career, because, that's not what guys do. We're meant to do trade. So a lot of the start, I was like, no, that's not who I am. And that's where I feel like at the start of this whole journey, I was like, no, I'm sick of being someone else. Because, yeah, of course, for example, I can do this and I can do that. Like, that's why I wrote the song, and I can build things, and that's what, like, guys can do, but that's not who I am. And I feel like constantly battling yourself, trying to find who you are and identity of who you are, like going back to yourself as a kid, because that's obviously who we all initially are before people go like, oh, don't do that, that's gay, or guys can't sing or whatever. And like, yeah, I think the constant battle now is with obviously myself and my battling with my old self and my old identity. But yeah, I think the comparison's always going to happen. I feel like it's just one of those things where you learn to grow past it and not listen to that small voice in your head anymore. It's trying to hold you back as your old self, because that's all it really is. You're growing, and then your old self has been like, no, don't do that. But really, that's where the change and the growth is. So I think you just got to slowly train to not compare yourself to that old voice in your head that goes like, that's not who you are. When in reality, it is who you are.
I think the other thing is, when you're doing it by yourself and you're a solo artist, a solo performer, a solo writer, it's probably easier to get into that state of mind where you can start to doubt yourself and compare yourself to others. Whereas if you're working in a group, and let's use music as our example, if you're working in a band and you've got 2 other members or 3 other members with you, any feelings of lack of self-worth or imposter syndrome, you can bounce off everybody else, and because you sort of can create that flow state as the group, and you can bounce ideas off, it's a lot easier to dismiss the feelings of worthlessness or imposter syndrome or anything, because the group comes together, you get into the groove of the group, and all those thoughts and feelings just go away. But I think when you're doing it by yourself, it can be a bit more challenging.
Yeah, well, everyone knows life is easier when you have a helping hand, or friends that are, for example, like a band. When you have people like balloons in your life, and you have a rock that's a project, it's always easier. So I think, yeah, like you said, I think it is a lot easier when you're with a group or a band, because obviously you have, like you said, like that other person, or like just the group to keep you keep the ball rolling. But when you're by yourself, I guess you just get so hard on yourself. Because when you're not doing it, you're like, should be doing something. And then when you're doing it, you're like, this isn't good enough. But when you have someone else there with you to kind of like bounce ideas off and everything, I think it's a lot more smooth ride when it comes to having that someone with you to work through the process. So I guess it is a bit harder being an independent artist. But like I said, that's why I have my crew. I have my friends that I can bounce my ideas off, and that's where that's how we get through life.
Yeah, and people say that a lot of creative people they need attention, they need validation, and I don't think that people who aren't creative, I don't think they really understand what it is that we need, and I don't think that we crave attention or we crave validation. It's not about that. It's more that whole thing of, well, I'm doing this by myself or whatever, and it's asking for a form of feedback, but it's not, oh, look how good I am. It's basically saying, am I good enough? But you're just not saying it in those terms. What you're basically saying to someone when you say, what do you think of the song? What you're basically saying to them is, I think I'm shit, or I don't like it very much, or I'm just not too sure. What do you think? And I think that it can get easily misconstrued as people go, oh, you're just attention seeking because you're an artist.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the hard part of being an artist. Like, oh my God, the whole reason why I suck at being on my phone is because of that, to be honest. It's like the whole thing like, hey, look at me. I made a song, listen to this. Whereas actually more just like, hey guys, like, I love you all. I made this. Like, I hope you like it. I hope you enjoy it. And get something out of it. Like, I made this for everyone. You know what I mean? That's where the artist actually sits. Like we said earlier, I'm not doing it for followers. I'm doing this out of love for myself, because it's who I am, and love for people. Because like I said, you never know when your art can change someone's life. So, yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, you can write 1,000 songs and put them all out there for the world. And I guess there's more satisfaction in knowing that you've done something that you're passionate about, and that at least you've got an element of yourself out there in the world, regardless of, as you say, whether people have listened to it or not, or watched it or not, because at least you've followed the desire, you've followed your dream, and it's out there. And the thing with creation is that once you've thought of something and you plan the thing out, once you've done it and it's out there, it's done. And you can't always revel in, oh, look what I've done, because after a while, once it's completed, that you can actually feel rather empty. And I went through that with the movie. I didn't expect it. I spent such a long time writing my movie, The Party Bus, and doing the casting and getting the thing together, and then, all that time when we were filming it and editing it and getting it right. And then when it was finished and we watched it, at the cinema and so forth, that's when I really realized, apart from being very proud of the achievement, to see it on the big screen, I really, really realized driving home that night, well, that is now it. I've made the movie. We've shot the movie. It's finished. People are now watching the movie. That movie is, from my point of view, it's now done. If I want to go off and make another movie, that's exactly what I have to do. Because the fun of making The Party Bus has finished because the movie is completed. And it's the same with the song. You write the song, you put your heart and soul into it, you record it, and you get it to a stage where you go, like, I love this version that I've recorded, and bang, you upload it. Well, that is the end of the creation of that song, because people can then listen to it for the next 20, 30, 50 years or whatever. But your creation process has ended. And if you want to keep expressing yourself, write another song, write another movie, write another joke. Otherwise, you're always talking about what you've done, but if there's a passion within you that's still burning and you're not pushing forward, that's when you can feel like shit again.
Yeah, well, I think that's the whole pursuit of life too. Usually, you just got to keep going. Like, obviously, it's great to admire the past, and the present's a gift. The future is unknown, and that's why you got to keep walking forward. And then again, like you said, like, you make the song and you express love. You're like, hey, this is what I did. Like, you cook food for everyone, and they're like, I hope you enjoy this. This is a way of me giving you love. I want you to have a full belly. I want your ears to be blessed with some sort of good music, hopefully. And then next thing is like, I want to do it again. And that's what you got to drive for. I want to do this again. I want to do that again so you can feel that again. So you know how much I care about you, the love of life and everything. And that's why we do it. Because, for example, like you said, you write another joke, you're like, I love making people laugh. I want to make them feel that way. It makes me feel good. And that's how you just got to keep driving forward. And that's what passion is. That's what people are lost, I feel like sometimes. It's the actual drive of what real love is.
So I suppose there's a lot of your feeling of self-worth comes through seeing how people respond to your art. I mean, because if you can see that they are resonating with it and it gets them through a dark time, or it makes them smile, or it makes them laugh, that gives you such a kick. And it basically, once again, validates you and what you've done, because you can see the impact that it's had on someone's life. It's not, oh, look at my ego, blah, blah, blah. It's, wow, look at how that person became so happy after listening to my music or hearing that joke or watching that movie. And I think that is such a powerful driving force. And I know it was with me, like when I did my show Identity Crisis in Melbourne this year, as I've said to Nikita and a few other people on this podcast, I didn't expect the connection with people as deeply as it was. And it was that thing of, and this is where this podcast was born from, because it was that whole thing of, I had been able to make people not only laugh, but come along on a journey where they're like, wow, I'm not the only person who's gone through that or thinks this way or feels this way. And it motivates you to go, well, I want to keep going with my journey, but I want to bring people with me. I want to make people happy and laugh and take them on that journey, or make them feel sad, but then make them feel that it's safe to feel all of those emotions, because as humans, we're constantly in an emotional state, whether we realize that or not. We're always feeling some form of emotion. And I think the thing with artists sort of encapsulate their emotion at that particular time, put it out there to the world, and the world connects with the artist through their work, whether they know the person or not.
Yeah, that's exactly it. My friend Sahar, he loves my song that I put out recently, Play My Games, and I wrote that song directed from myself now and the old me when I was a kid. And the whole song's about playing games, but the song's not just about playing games. It's actually using games as, a way to get through, escape from yourself and all that type of stuff. So it's a very emotional song, actually, with all these obviously game quotes and jokes in there. But it's one of those things where, again, it's just the way the song makes you feel is why why I picked the song. And that's why I do, like you said, I love to hear what people feel, or like how I've changed someone just from listening to my song, because that's what music gives to me, and that's why I started my passion for it. So yeah.
No, that's just amazing. And when I hear people who do it for the right reasons, and what you have just said really is the right reason. It's a passion for you, but then doing it to connect with people as well. It really is the right reasons, and I think that's just the best thing. It really is. So, tell me, what is the next step moving forward for you as far as music is concerned? Like, what's in store for the rest of 2024? What do you have planned for years ahead? What does the future look like at the moment for Mr. Roy Maddocks?
Well, to be honest, ever since I started, the ball kind of just keeps rolling bigger and faster, like a massive snowball. So I was on a chat to one of my music friends just earlier today, and we're talking about doing some more live shows this year. So that's going to be great for some performances. But actually, my personal goal is to actually get 12 songs out this year, which I'm behind on. But good news, I've got my next song coming out in the next couple of weeks, Reading Writing Helpline. One of my friends designed the photo for it, so I'm really happy. He even actually got me a merch T-shirt with the print on it, so I'm even thinking about selling some shirts this time round, so it might even be busier than I thought. But yeah, so I think the next couple months is just producing and releasing and mastering. which is a lot of work that people don't see in the background when it comes to music, but that's okay. Do it for the love of it. So it's all good. But yeah, it's a big goal to get 12 songs out in 1 year. It's a song a month, and being late already, I've got my work packed in. But yeah, looking forward to next year because I've already got 12 songs lined up for next year. So pretty keen. It's going to be busy, but it's going to be an awesome ride.
Well, look, don't think for any second that it's a short period of time to produce a lot of music, because, as we've said before, there are so many people out there who have written things in 15 minutes or less. They've created things at the drop of a hat, and they've been incredible songs or incredible pieces of art or whatever it might be. And sometimes having a deadline subconsciously can actually bring out the most amazing things. If you go, oh shit, I need to have a song done in a week, you may find that on day 6 you just have this silly idea that you pen out in 5 minutes, and you go, fuck me, that's amazing. So I think that when it comes to deadline, it's good to obviously say this is my goal, but you can't put a timeline deadline on the creative process. And this is where I was talking to a musician on one of my other episodes, and we basically said, you've got all the time in the world to make your first album, especially when you get picked up by a label. And that can be, you've spent 5 years, honing your craft, your style, and writing the songs that are now going to be like the 12 or 14 songs on the album. But then you've got 18 months to get the next one out, or 12 months to get the next one out, because now that you're signed, right, you're touring. Oh, and by the way, we need the second album within 18
you got to start,
And that's and don't get me wrong, I mean, that's where the machine starts, where it can be hectic. But that's also where, as I said, subconsciously, knowing that there's a deadline there, it can obviously help to go, I don't know, creativity works in a very weird way like that. Sometimes you've got all the time in the world to do anything you want, but if you go, I want to achieve this, it is amazing how you can do it. So, for example, if you're like, well, hey, listen, I need to write 8 more songs in 6 months' time, you'd be surprised that within that 6 months' time, you probably write more than that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. To be honest, it's one of those things where these songs I wrote 10 years ago before I even started this whole journey. So I think, like you said, I've put this mental deadline on myself to be like, get these out. Get them out. You've held on to them for too long. Just let it go. So I think having a great deadline like this is awesome, because like you said, it's like, even though I've prepared these songs already, it's just one of those things where it's like, get it going and drive. Just drive this car forward for start. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's the thing, get the car going and keep yourself on the road. Now tell me, whereabouts can people find your music?
I'm on Spotify. That's a big one. So look me up, Roy Maddocks, ROYMADDOCKS. Also on YouTube. If anyone's on YouTube, and Apple Music is all out there already as well. I think I've only just got the 5 releases so far, but yeah, the next song release is definitely coming out in a month. So pretty keen for that. So definitely stay tuned.
That sounds awesome. And with YouTube, are they just the tracks, or have you actually produced some video clips to that, or is it how do you put it on YouTube?
They're all just the tracks. But if you look up open hype ciphers, I'm actually this next song release was inspired from that cipher. I was involved in it, and it was a blast of fun. My mate V Vendetta ran the whole thing. He's an awesome guy. I look him up too. But it was all inspired from that. So I don't have any music videos out yet, but hopefully in the next year or so, I do start on that bandwagon, because it's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. And hey, if I can put any little ideas out there, if you want to write a song about identity crisis, then please feel free. And if you do, what I'll do is I'll make sure that we feature on this podcast in some way.
Oh, sick, man. I'll get you in a sample saying something. I'll put it in.
Sounds amazing. Sounds fantastic. Well, listen, Mr. Roy Maddocks, thank you so much for your time and being willing to open up and talk about your journey here on the Identity Crisis podcast. And I really wish you every single success, not just with 2024 and your goals, but also all of your music career ahead of you.
You too, man. No, I really, really appreciate it, man. I've been looking forward to doing this, and yeah, thank you so much. It's been a very grateful. Yeah, I'm very grateful for this conversation. I'm just blessed, and yeah, so glad I got to finally have a good chat with you, man. This has been great.
Thank you for listening to this episode, and remember, it's only an identity crisis if you choose to make it one. It's okay to not be okay, so speak up and talk to someone, or be the one that someone can turn to in their time of need. Don't forget to follow this podcast wherever you're listening, and if you're interested in being a guest on the show, send me an email at jnewtzcomedy@gmail.com. I'm JNewtz, and I'll see you next time.